Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 290, cover dated July 1992. So no captions on this particular cover. It's by Whilce Portacio, inked by him as well. And it is his last cover of Uncanny X-Men, and it's his last issue of the title before going off to be one of the 7 co-founders of Image Comics and working on his own title, Wetworks. So, striking cover. You couldn't possibly walk past this one on the stands without picking it up. And let's open it up and see whether Storm is crying tears of joy or sorrow on the inside. So this picks up immediately from the cliffhanger at the end of the previous issue, where Bobby Drake, Iceman, is taking his girlfriend Opal, Tanaka, to meet his parents for dinner at an Italian restaurant on Long Island. And it all goes wrong when cyber ninjas turn up that are relations of Opal's, because her grandfather is a Japanese crime boss. It's the kind of thing that happens in comics, yes? And so Iceman has put up a protective ice wall for them to shelter behind, but Iceman's father, who's a little bit of a bigot regarding Opal Tanaka as being Japanese, is recommending that they get out of the restaurant and don't present themselves as hostages. And it's a good idea on his part. So then we have our double page splash here. Pretty dynamic. We've got Iceman looking very heroic here in the foreground, and then we've got Opal's cousin Hiro here in the background taking on this huge guy here. And our creative team is Scott Lobdell, plot and script. Whilce Portacio pencils, so no plotting credit for Portacio here. Scott Williams inks. And let me tell you that Scott Williams does not ink every single page in here, so I'll point those ones out when we get to them. L. Lois Bohalis letters. Kevin Tinsley colors, so I haven't seen him coloring the title so far. This is his first color job, so Joe Rosas taking the month off. And let's continue now with the issue. So just let you take a look at that. It's pretty nicely done. And then we've got a scene switch to Salem Center in New York's Westchester County, so close enough to the X-Mansion. And we've got Colossus here with his brother Mikhail, who we haven't seen since issue 286. And Colossus is making travel arrangements for the two to travel to, well, he's about to say the Soviet Union, but of course the Soviet Union is gone by this point. So they're traveling to Russia to meet their parents. And Mikhail is looking forward to meet the little sister who was born while he was trapped in another dimension. And all of that was detailed back in Uncanny X-Men 284. So great art here in this particular anchor image with that classic Portacio top-down angled view. And we've got a little kind of domestic scene here with this couple, family, and this girl dropping some food down for the pigeons. It's nicely done. And then little Easter egg here, Portacio drawing the Philippines flag, Portacio being Filipino, on the back of Colossus's flight jacket. So Colossus goes into the travel agents to organize the tickets, and then Mikhail is left by himself, and he doesn't like to be left on his own. And twilight is coming onto the now empty street as Colossus deals with the travel agent inside. And then Mikhail flashes back to the moment he used his mutant ability to manipulate energy to close the portal of the High Avatar, and how it resulted in the mass death of his adversaries and also his own followers and his own wife. So he is eaten up with guilt here by virtue of all of that. And then this hapless pizza boy runs in to Mikhail, and he begs forgiveness, but Mikhail says, no, you're sorry, you will be. And soon then, Colossus arrives out just as night is falling, with the tickets in his hand, and he finds his brother on the ground. And he asks him what happened, and Mikhail responds, nothing. And this is horrifying. This is what's happened to the pizza boy. So Mikhail has turned him into a tree using his ability to manipulate energy. So this is a dark little episode, and he says nothing to Colossus, and Colossus is none the wiser. So very freaky, this incident, and doesn't bode well for Mikhail's mental health, or his ever getting back to normal, yes. And then we turn over the page and we've got this excellent splash of Ororo, who is delighted with the proposal made to her by Forge, proposal to marry him in the previous issue. So she's on cloud nine, soaring through the skies, and she's asking herself, am I at last to experience the joy, the happiness I've long denied myself? Should I take Jean Grey's advice, follow where my heart leads me, and accept Forge's proposal? Has the time come when I can let go of the X-Men and attempt to embrace a life where my own welfare and state of mind and that of my husband is my paramount concern? Great art by Portacio here. Really nice version of Storm, and Storm looking happy, of course, in this image. And then we move to Forge working in the underground complex of the X-Mansion, working to repair the Blackbird, which has been out of commission since Adjectiveless X-Men number 8, and he was working on it in that particular issue. So he is finished, actually. Nice anchor image here of Forge focusing on his work, and Jean Grey here sitting on the wing of the Blackbird, and she asks him, so tell me, Forge, when you asked Storm to marry you, what did she say? And he replies, she said she needed time to think about it. And he told her in the previous issue that he didn't expect an immediate answer, that she could think about it. And he says, nonetheless, not quite the response I was looking for, but it ranks somewhere before Drop Dead. She could have said no, says Jean. She could have said yes. And he fixed it, and then he thinks, this is funny. He fixed it. Jean asks him, what's so funny? And then over the page, he says, I don't know, maybe life. Here I am, the mutant who can repair anything, except the woman I love. And then that ticks Jean off, and she uses her telekinesis to whack him with the towel. And she says to him, pardon the blow to your male ego, but there's nothing wrong with Ororo. And Forge isn't going along with that. He says, you don't believe that any more than I do, Jean. That woman has dedicated every waking moment of her life to the X-Men since the moment I met her back in Uncanny X-Men 186. Even Professor X found time to love Lilandra. The only quality time Ororo and I ever shared happened when we were trapped on the Adversaries world back in Uncanny X-Men 226. Pretty sad when banishment to another dimension is the only way we can be alone together. And then Jean is more sympathetic and says to him, what can I say? And he has a question for her. Pretty dramatic here. You can tell me the truth. You're a telepath. You know I love Ororo more than life itself. And he says, not so obvious is whether Ororo truly loves me in return. She says she does. She may even believe it. But you can tell me, does Storm love me? And then we get this strange response from Jean, because we learned earlier that Ororo was saying that Jean told her she should follow her heart, and her heart is saying she should marry Forge, say yes, accept his proposal. And then Jean turns away and says it's not for me to say. And this results in Forge inferring that Storm doesn't love him, as he walks away saying, you just did. Tell him what he wanted to know. But something else to note here is this choice of Portacio's with the panels kind of dropping down towards our bottom panel. This is one of his devices, and it's interesting. Nobody else does that. So a feature of his style and distinctive of it, and it works here on this particular page. And then we switched back to La Casa Mia, the remains of La Casa Mia, and the fight between Iceman, Hiro, and the cyber ninjas continues. And of course, one of them gets his hands on Opal. And what we're learning there is that it is all about Opal's family, and the war between her mother and grandfather, and her mother attempted to poison her grandfather. So there's family honor and business at stake here that Iceman isn't 100% aware of, but Hiro is, and also he's carrying a flame for Opal, for his own cousin, and he is fighting to protect her here. Now, this is one of these pages. This is not inked by Scott Williams. Someone else is inking this page. I'm not sure who it is. I don't know if it's somebody from the Marvel bullpen or is it someone from Image Studios. But it is definitely not inked by Scott Williams. And it's the same with this particular page as well, not inked by Scott Williams. You can see the difference in terms of the inking style on Iceman. A little bit more cruder. Obviously, these pages inked speedily and probably up against a printer's deadline once again. So the decision is made that Iceman take Opal out of the fight, and he's saying as soon as he gets her out of harm's way, he'll be right back. And Opal is very concerned about Hiro and how he's going to fare against the group of cyber ninjas. But he's there and he's staying there in a final attempt to salvage respect for the family name. So then we go back to the X-Mansion, and we've got Bishop standing out in the rain, and we've got Ororo still in flight. And then we have this little business with Mystique, who emerges from the X-Mansion. She's staying there as a favor to Wolverine. And she is in a mischievous mode again, and engaging Bishop in conversation, asking him to tell her more about herself. And Bishop says, according to your file, you've not been the same since the death of a woman under your command. I believe her name was Destiny. So a reference back to Uncanny X-Men 255 and the death of Destiny. And this riles Mystique up, and she puts shapeshifts into the guise of Randall, trying to get a rise out of Bishop. But Bishop isn't taking the bait. He says, Randall's death was not my fault. He was fulfilling his responsibility as a member of the XSE. And she says in his voice, and what about your responsibility to me, sir? And he's not having any more of it now. He says, I've witnessed your powers ad nauseum. Are you prepared to experience mine? As he gets ready to blast her. Again, this is another page. This page is not inked by Scott Williams. And some of the telltale signs are the delineation of the forearm hair. So a much cruder delineation here. Not Scott Williams on this page, but I'm not sure who it is myself, because we don't have a clue in the credits. And then what turns out is Forge, just as he did the previous issue, he intervenes on Mystique's behalf. And it turns out that Mystique is apparently not well at all. And Forge says to Bishop, can't you see the poor woman needs help? Mystique is losing her sanity, her identity a little more each day. Cursed with the mutant ability to be anyone she wants, she can barely keep track of who she is. And so she's flashing back to a conversation with her father when a child and being late for dance class. And Forge is taking pity on her and has made a decision to take care of her. So interesting development here. Now, much later on, it turns out that Mystique was faking insanity in this particular scene, but memorably rendered by Portacio in this particular panel. She looks like she is not well, in this panel. So if we continue then, we go back to the restaurant, and again, this is a page that is not inked by Scott Williams. And as Bobby, Iceman, gets Opal out of the restaurant, Hiro blows up his armor, commits suicide for the sake of family honor, and takes himself and the cyber ninjas out. And of course, this takes Iceman by surprise, because he was determined to go back in and get Hiro out. And he's shocked at what has happened. Again, this page not inked by Scott Williams. And Iceman says to Opal, I just don't get it. Why didn't he wait for me? Why did he try to take them all on his own? And he thinks to himself, the idiot. And Opal says, it was a matter of honor, Bobby. And then whispers, but I do not expect you to understand that. So there's some cracks in the relationship between Opal and Bobby emerging here on this page, and in the aftermath of Hiro's self-sacrifice. And then we pick up back at the X-Mansion, and Ororo finally alighting from her flight, and her thinking about what to say in response to Forge's proposal. And she's got that smile on her face, so I think we know what she's going to say. And Forge is there waiting for her on the balcony of her bedroom. And she asks him, what are you doing here? Why are you dressed as if? And he says, I'm leaving tonight with Mystique. Apparently Destiny was right about Mystique and I being together in the end. And that was a prediction made by Destiny back in Uncanny X-Men 255. She's been through a lot, and it's only getting worse. She at least needs me. And then Ororo, of course, wonders, well, what about me? I need you too. And he replies, you don't know how, more than anything, I wish that were true. Again, this classic top-down angled Portacio viewpoint here, with the open panel as well. Another open panel here. And then we've got this conversation between them. Forge is quite harsh here to Ororo, where he says, I don't think you need anybody. I'm holding a woman in my arms, but in your heart, you're still the frightened little orphan buried beneath your parents' brownstone. The ton of rubble has just been replaced by the endless responsibilities you force upon yourself as an X-Man. Until you ease up on yourself, you're only playing at the role of a stoic, emotionless leader. Underneath, you're as much an adult as Kitty or Jubilee. It's quite harsh, it's tough. And she replies weakly, why, you're as much a lost stray as Bishop. Why are you doing this? You'll never leave the X-Men, not for good. You're going to stay trapped beneath the debris that is your life forever. So this is brutal from Forge. In fact, stop what, he says. Stop trying to change you to help you. Stop watching you throw away any chance you have of ever leading a normal life. Fine, I've stopped. I asked you to marry me, Ororo. I realize that will never happen. I'm sorry. And he walks out and leaves. Great panel here. Open panel by Portacio, really capturing the devastation for Ororo. Very hard to see how Forge can't see the reaction from her, and how that must reveal something of her heart to him. And then when he's gone, she says, I was going to say yes. This is a heartbreaking panel with Ororo left alone, and Forge gone, and the marriage proposal rescinded. But here in the background we have Bishop looking out and seeing her, and of course he was worried. What if he was worried earlier in the issue, if she were to leave, he wouldn't have anyone that he felt close to or that was kind to him at the X-Mansion. And it's either that and or a suggestion perhaps of some kind of romantic interest, though that doesn't go anywhere. But this is the end of a long relationship between Storm and Forge that goes all the way back to Claremont's Uncanny X-Men 186. So over. And it's also the end for Whilce Portacio as chief creative on Uncanny X-Men and penciler. He's gone too, off to co-found Image, and work on his new title, Wetworks. So I do hope that you enjoyed this video review of Uncanny X-Men 290. If you did so, please like the video, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.